I'm
Hey,
here.
sweetie, how you doing?
I'm fine. How are you?
Girl, how are you doing? Water.
I'm good. I didn't have a water problem here.
Praise the Lord. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if it's you know I'm not sure how it hits some households and others, but I'm in technically in DeKalb County
Yeah,
in
just
Brookhaven, so maybe that's it, but I'm not sure.
but be careful,
I will.
because I look at all of it and just go, because water is water. It flows. It doesn't stop. You know. So, but
Shakira, I'll be in Chicago on Monday.
Call has been forwarded
oh,
to an
call
automated
me.
voice messaging system.
What
I
time?
definitely
One
will.
For how
zero
long?
five nine eight
We're
zero
just for the
zero.
day. We're meeting
Wait,
at the office.
what time?
We're meeting at the office.
What time?
I think 10 o'clock.
Well, I definitely want to speak with you.
Okay. I'll be there, I think, probably until like 3. I've got to find something flight. So I'll be there all day.
Well, I've got to tape at 3, so I'll come by early just to say hey. Okay, let me come in. Are we up now? Okay, we're coming up, CK.
Good
Okay.
morning and welcome to Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson. The views and opinions of this program are not
Your call
necessarily
has
the
been
views of the
forwarded to
station, but
voicemail.
strictly of our host and his guests. To speak with Reverend Jackson live, call toll free 1-866-594-HOPE. That's 1-866-594-4673. And now, the Reverend Jesse Jackson.
Oh, oh. Are you serious right
Hello,
now?
David Gibbs.
Good morning, David Gibbs. This is Keep Up Alive.
Yes.
Police officer, David.
That's the sound of the man working on the chain. Yeah,
Oh.
that's the sound of the man working on the chain. Yeah.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson. I'm Santita Jackson. It's a joy to be with you today. A little humor from our technical producer, Jeremy Geiger. But we are talking about President Trump and his 34 convictions, felonious convictions. They were misdemeanors and they were upgraded to Class C felonies. That's the lowest grade of a felony, but he is now technically, actually, not even technically, a convicted felon. And the tack we're going to take today on Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson is what about his voting rights? Particularly since he's a resident of Florida. Florida voted several years ago to give more than 1 million ex felons, people who had paid their debt to society, the right to vote. Their rights to vote had been restored. Then the Republican legislature has done everything that they could to overturn it, including the standing governor, Ron DeSantis, who announced just a couple of days ago, oh no, Donald Trump can vote. So let's talk about that. What about this discussion that is now being stirred up once again about the restoration of voting rights? What about that? Of course, we'll be touching on some of the aspects of the case, but where this can go politically, we're going to have Dr. David Gibbs from the University of Arizona, brilliant historian. He has a book coming out. We're going to talk about that very quickly, but we've got to talk with attorney C.K. Hoffler, legal analyst on Court TV, chair of Rainbow Push, former president of the National Bar Association, which is the largest and oldest black bar association in the world. And we've got our attorney, Daryl Jones, from the Transformative Justice Coalition. Indeed, he and Barbara Arnwine stand at the vanguard of voting rights in the United States today. We've got a lot to talk about. What do you make of this? We have not seen someone run for president as a convicted felon. I mean, a serious, serious candidate, really, since Eugene Debs. And while Eugene Debs got 3 million votes more than 100 years ago, just over 100 years ago, he was a socialist who was a populist, a union organizer, someone who was very popular in populist circles. He was not, though, a so called top tier candidate. That is to say, He was not one of from one of the major parties, but he did get 3 million votes. He did get 3 million votes, and we are not in a time of chaos, but France is on their fourth or fifth. I think it's their fifth republic. And if we're going to be technical about it, America is really on our second or third. Second republic, I would say, the reformation of our government came after the Civil War, after we ended chattel slavery in the United States. And then when we broke the back of apartheid, that was another republic. So, you've got to look at Abraham Lincoln as a founding father of a new republic, and Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King and his colleagues as founders of yet another. That having been said, this is yet a new time. What about voting rights? What will it say? What does it say that Governor DeSantis stepped forward and said, oh, no, Donald Trump can vote, even though he is technically a felon, but because he's not been in prison, people say, well, the law as it's written in Florida says, well, no, he gets a pass on that. But does he really? Should he? What about the more than 1 million persons in Florida alone who've had their voting rights restored, but those who have tried to go to vote, some of them have been put in prison or they've been threatened with prison? What do you think about that? So call us at 866-594-HOPE, 866-594-4673, and let us talk about it today. We need to talk about the restoration of voting rights as we're going to see it play out, Jerry, through this particular case. What's going to happen and what's going to be the political fallout of these 34 convictions? Boy, they came back very quickly, but a lot of people have questions about the judge too. And whether you like President Trump or not, you do want the playing field to be level and the rules to be clear. Reverend Jackson has talked about that often. He taught us, his children, when we were growing up, he and our mother said, okay, there's no sin in losing. Don't get used to it, but take your losses and take your wins with equanimity. That having been said, you're going to lose sometimes, but you don't want to be cheated, right? And that's what we're looking at. Is there a little bit of cheating going on? Let's talk about it. On Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson, I'm Santita Jackson. I want you to call us at 866-594-HOPE, 866-594-4673. Let us know what you think about former President Trump being allowed to vote, even though the majority of Floridians several years ago voted to give ex-felons the right to vote. And then the Republican legislature stepped right in and sought to overturn it. So what do you think about that? So call us. Hey, Yvonne, you're right. Nobody likes to be cheated on anything. And of course, Mildred, you say sentencing is July 11th for Trump. But can you really put a former president in prison? Just get your thoughts on it. What a security nightmare. Then you find out that when Mar-a-Lago was raided, that they were authorized to use deadly force. Really? Against the Secret Service? It's just a very interesting time, everybody. Call us at 866-594-HOPE, 866-594-4673, and I hope you'll meet me on my show from 6 to 8 a.m., Monday through Friday on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota, and we are streaming on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel right now, and we're also streaming there 5 days a week. So let's look at it. Let's check it out, everybody, here on Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson. And our Rainbow Push International Conference is August 13th through the 17th. You don't want to miss that. August 13th through the 17th, and then the Democratic Convention begins the next day. A lot of people are going to be gathering in Chicago because they are going to be voicing their opinions about various and sundry issues, and we want you to meet at Rainbow Push first. Today, we're dedicating the show to Mrs. Marion Robinson, the mother of our forever First Lady, Michelle Robinson Obama, and her brother, Craig Robinson, grandmother to 6 grandchildren, someone who, quite frankly, I've known practically all of my life. I met her when I was 14. A wonderful, wonderful human being who was a wife, a mother, a grandmother, and a mother to anyone she encountered. She never had an unkind word to say about anyone. Never. Wonderful, wonderful human being. And and while I know that there is heartbreak in the Robinson and Obama families today, I hope that they will be lifted up in time. Just having had such a wonderful mother, someone who in their young lives dedicated her life to getting them on their feet. And she went on to work downtown, but she was at home. And whatever financial sacrifices she and her husband, the dearly departed Fraser Robinson, had to make, they made them. They made them to make sure that the children, that Craig could play sports. He went on to become a top college basketball player. Now he's one of the top college basketball coaches in the country. And then, of course, we know Michelle Obama's story, but she took piano lessons and things like that. That's who her parents were. And I'm so grateful to God to have known them both. And so grateful that Mrs. Marion Robinson is with her beloved Fraser this morning. But certainly we're keeping the Obama and Robinson families lifted up in prayer today, and we dedicate the show to them. And to anyone who has a hole in their heart today, we know that God can plug up that hole. And remember, absence from us is presence in the Lord. May God bless you, Mrs. Marion Robinson. Back with Keep Hope Alive in just a few minutes.
Working on the highways and byways and wearing
Your opinion counts.
You know you are
1-866.
truly an awful person. Oh, you got me on that one. Okay. Who do we have? Dr. Gibbs and CK?
Yes, good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. I want you to know the chain gang song was not my idea. That was Jeremy.
Keep it alive.
Said, what are you talking about?
Keep it alive.
So, but I'm glad to have you all this morning.
Keep it alive.
CK, are you going to get in early and get the push, or are you arriving just in time?
I'm going to get
Hey,
in.
Chris,
My
hold
flight
on.
gets in, I believe, at 8 something. I can try to take an earlier flight and get in a little bit early, 7 something, if you're up for early breakfast.
Oh, I
something like that.
absolutely am.
Okay.
I'm definitely up for that. You know, but if it won't press you too much, because I know you've got to go to South Carolina today.
I do. I'm
So,
going to
you know, just let me know.
Okay.
Just let me know, because that's a lot.
Well, that's okay, but I'll be back. That Clemson is like an hour and 45 minutes from here, and we're driving. And I'll be back tonight.
Okay. Well,
And then my flight leaves at 7 tomorrow morning.
Okay. Well, either way, I'll see you on your way into your meeting for sure. But I would love to have breakfast with you. I would love that.
All right. I'll see if it's possible for me to take it earlier. I think there was one earlier flight. And I usually like to take the first flight because the first flights are rarely canceled.
Mm-hmm. And they are typically not full.
Not full.
Mm-hmm.
Because even if they sold out, people inevitably don't show up for the first flight.
Oh, yeah. Well, I love it. Plus, I love getting that jump on my day,
Absolutely. And I love first flight.
Oh. Yeah, that's all my
but
friends.
Even in Atlanta, the air at 6 o'clock in the morning, 5:30 in the morning, the airport is crowded, believe it or not.
Oh, honey, I've been to Atlanta many times, but not really since you've been there. Hello.
I know.
So let me just say that.
Hopefully soon.
Yes, no, it will be soon. It will be soon. Because I'm getting out and about much more. So, Dr. Gibbs, how are you?
Good morning, Santita. Good to be on.
Oh, thank you so much for getting up. Oh,
Hi, Dr. Gibbs.
Hi, everybody.
What did he say? It's good to be up. Yes, it is. Thank you. Do we have Daryl Jones with us?
No.
Okay, well, we will. Okay, what you say is good to be
Daryl
up.
on the line, too?
Not
Hi,
yet.
Daryl.
Well,
not yet. Okay.
Not yet, but we'll get him. It's good to be up. Oh my gosh! And what about Representative Myers? Okay, we'll get him. Oh my goodness. Okay, let me say hello to everybody this morning. Everybody like and share the
McDonald's.
show. Hey, Shirley from beautiful
Hey, good morning. How are
Philadelphia.
you?
Zenobia
Please open Sandy.
and Donna, 2455. And Kenneth. You can't hear me now? You should be able to. Okay, you're bad or you're bad. I don't know. Can you hear us now, everybody? Let us know. Thank you, Michael. I'm glad to be back. Yes, I was a little surprised by there's some people you expect to be around forever. And I thought that about Mrs. Obama, bless her, Mrs. Robinson. But she was 86 and she was a marathoner too, everybody. She was very, very fit. Very, very fit. And so there's that.
You're listening to Keep Hope Alive. Jesse Jackson. Call 1-866-59.
Because you're going to be staying for a short while, Dr. Gibbs, I'm going to pivot to you very quickly, okay?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah,
Great.
fine.
You're killing me today. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson. I'm Santita Jackson. It's a joy to be with you today here on Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson. If you want to tune in to us, go to iHeartRadio. Go to that app, key in Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson. They will direct you to a radio station at Patriot. 1150 is our main station. It's a super station in Southern California, but we are all over the country. And we certainly want you to be a part of this conversation. Please call us at 866-594-HOPE, 866-594-4673. Want to get your thoughts, your comments about President Trump, former President Trump, who is the presumptive nominee of the Republican Party. He was convicted on all 34 felony counts. Now, it was a misdemeanor, it became a felony, and then the judge gave the jury instructions that if they couldn't find him guilty on a felony, that they could kick it back to a misdemeanor. Never heard of anything like this, but here we are. That having been said, there will be political fallout, but part of the big fallout is voting rights. I mean, that's the discussion to me that should be certainly up front and center. Why? Because Florida voted to restore the voting rights of more than 1 million ex-felons, and immediately the Republican-led legislature tried to overturn that. And now, immediately following former President Trump's conviction, the Republican governor who ran against him in the primaries, Ron DeSantis, said, oh, no, everybody. I hear that, but he can vote. He can still vote. I'd explain that to me, but there are political consequences to all of this. And please hold Jeremy Geiger, my technical producer, responsible for every song you hear today. What a sense of humor you have. But this was the hush money trial, and many people thought that this was the weakest case. Well, of course, we've got attorney C.K. Hoffler, chair of Rainbow Push, legal analyst on Court TV, and former president of the National Bar Association, the largest and oldest Black bar association in the world, more than 65,000 lawyers. And then, of course, we've got Attorney Darrell Jones, chairman of the Transformative Justice Coalition, brilliant attorney, as is Attorney Hoffler. And, of course, he and Attorney Barbara Ardoin are at the vanguard of voting rights in this country today. You can catch them on WOL every Tuesday at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time, and you can catch C.K. Hoffler on WAOK at, is it 10 o'clock? Why am I slipping on the time, C.K.? Is it 10 a.m. Eastern Time, or is it 11 a.m.?
It's 11 a.m. Eastern Time, 7 o'clock.
Thank you. Okay. But let me pivot to you. Dr. David Gibbs, who has his book, which is called The Revolt of the Rich. The Revolt of the Rich. Everybody get it. It is fantastic. Well, now the former president is a convicted felon. Were you surprised by the outcome of this trial, which is supposed to be the weakest case of all the cases against him at this time? But what do you think about this, and what might be the political fallout, or are we wrong to even ask that question?
Well, we don't really know, of course. We'll have to wait and see what's proposed. So I would guess probably it would not hurt Trump.
Let's remember here that since Trump announced in 2015, ran in 2016, there's been one scandal after another. Some of them contrived. I think this one honestly is contrived. Some of them quite real. It's remarkable how resistant his popularity has been to these scandals. I mean, for me personally, one thing there were all sorts of things that I, like everyone else, assumed would have ended his campaign. In 2016, you recall there was an incident where, well documented, it seemed, where he, barged in on 15-year-old girls changing their clothes for a beauty pageant. I thought that would have ended his credibility personally, but it didn't. And so here we are. I think that reflects poorly on the Democrats' judgment that all they can think of is to come up with these scandals. And the scandal we have here, as you noted, it's by far the weakest case. It does look very contrived. The whole prosecution looks contrived. And it does look politically motivated. And basically, you could say at an ethical level, this drags the Democrats down to Trump's level. I know that, the prosecution is supposed to be non-political, but let's be honest and admit it was political. If Donald Trump hadn't been Donald Trump, he weren't running for president, he had been some ordinary person, these charges never would have been brought. And again, the novel charges, many of them, as has been noted, there's all sorts of novel things that are going on legally, unprecedented things going on legally. And again, it's a very bad look for the Democrats. It looks like a political vendetta, because that's probably what it is. The Democrats feel they can't defeat Trump at the polls. They don't have a good argument against Trump, not good enough to convince voters. And so as a result of that, they have to resort to a contrived prosecution. Now, let me say there are other prosecutions against Trump that to me seem much more serious. And the one that to me seems the most serious is the one in Georgia about electoral interference. So that's a real charge, all right? And I would not have the slightest hesitation about putting Trump in prison for that. The problem is, for legal reasons, it's not proceeding until after the election. The only case the Democrats could bring was this case that is extremely weak, has to be said. And I just don't see this really having that big a negative impact on them. I could be wrong about that. But I think the most likely effect is it'll drive Republican enthusiasm and Republican turnout, and probably work against the Democrats, and probably supercharge the Trump campaign. That's my best prediction.
Do you read anything into, well, now Hunter Biden is going to be on trial? I mean, do you think that there might be, people might be seeking retribution, revenge upon Hunter Biden?
And use that for retribution, the whole thing has become an extended vendetta. And yes, the basic problem you have with the conviction of Trump is that it poisons American politics probably for many years to come, maybe decades to come. There's no doubt the Republicans are going to pursue with much greater vigor their efforts to go after Hunter Biden. If and when they win the presidency, they'll weaponize the Justice Department and start hitting back at the Democrats, just as the Democrats are hitting at them right now. Once you get control of the machinery of justice and use it against your political enemies, that's a very disturbing trend. And it's a somewhat new trend in politics, at least on this scale, we haven't really seen before. Now, politically motivated prosecutions, things we associated with unstable authoritarian systems. People have rightly criticized, the Russian government for prosecuting Navalny, a political opponent of Vladimir Putin, and putting him in prison, which seemed largely for political reasons. That seemed as an authoritarian act. But that's exactly what the Democrats are trying to do with Trump. And I no doubt that's what the Republicans will try to do with Hunter Biden and really any Democrat they can get their hands on, really. The real loser in all of this, in my view, is the public, because rather than talking about serious issues confronting us, including things like, voting rights in Florida, disenfranchisement of large numbers of people, and all sorts of other real issues, we'll be discussing political vendettas, on and on and on and on. I think that's where this is headed, and I would see both sides as being guilty in making this happen.
Well, you're a historian, and before you go, I mean, we've had someone run for president from prison before a century ago who got 3 million votes. That's not insubstantial. In the in the 1910s, Eugene Debs, Union leader, populist. Some people who felt that he was put in jail for political reasons. I mean, are there any parallels here?
Well, I sort of windshield building make parallels, but I'm a big admirer of
One of my, the political figures I respect most in American history. He was put in prison for opposing World War I, something he obviously did with a matter of principle, in a deeply repressive piece of legislation by Woodrow Wilson. Now that criminalized his dissent, and he ran for president from a jail cell and won 3 million votes. It's quite quick. 1920, I believe, was the year. And I seriously doubt Trump's going to run for president from a jail cell. I think that's an extremely unlikely scenario. But nevertheless, he will run as a convicted felon, even if the charges against him, at least to me, seem pretty insubstantial. So you do have that parallel that, he's going to join Eugene B. Debs as somebody running for president as a convicted felon. That's right. And again, he's a very different personality from Eugene B. Debs, and I certainly would not remotely put him in the same category. But in one specific respect, he is in the same category in that he was convicted, as was Debs, based upon a highly politicized prosecution. And there simply is no way of looking at the Trump prosecution in this case as being motivated by anything other than politics. And if his name were not Donald Trump, this case would never have been brought to court. I think that's quite obvious to anybody looking carefully at that.
Well, the name of your book again is?
Revolt of the Rich on the Politics of the 1970s. Why Americans passed away.
Do you think that's why we're here now, in part?
Well, I think a lot of this
is that, the rich have often used distraction as a means of getting their way. That's a long-standing issue. I mean, in the 1970s, they discovered that the things that they wanted, things like, aggressive taxation, crushing unions, lowering living standards, these are very unpopular issues. So they came up with a brilliant strategy of distracting the public with a lot of sort of social wedge issues, including racism. And, it worked like a charm. It worked perfectly from their standpoint. They got everything they wanted. I think basically the whole vendetta we're getting right now against Donald Trump is, to some extent, going to look a little bit like a distraction here. A lot of the, debates over woke and anti-woke as well. These are distraction issues, trying to get people to look away from what is going on in terms of the distribution of power and wealth in this country. So yes, I see some parallels here with what's going on in the 70s.
Dr. David Gibbs, everybody. The Revolt of the Rich. The Revolt of the Rich. Get the book now. Let's make it a bestseller. It's a fantastic, fantastic book. I think it helps to explain the times in which we find ourselves. CK, I've got about a couple of minutes. Yes, Jeremy? Before we go to break. CK, are you surprised by the outcome? I want you to explain, of course, in greater depth on the other side of the break, but I have about 2 minutes before we come up.
I wasn't surprised by the outcome at all. And while I would agree with maybe some of the conclusions that Dr. Gibbs respectfully did, as a lawyer, I didn't think his case was weak at all. So I was not surprised by the outcome, but perhaps didn't have the substance of the case in Georgia. But I disagree that it was a weak case. I think people didn't focus on it. They were so focused on the Georgia case. They were so focused on the Florida case. They were so focused on the D.C. case. And that is why it progressed perhaps as quickly as it did. But I disagree vehemently that it was a weak case.
Okay. Well, when we get back, I want to hear from you and from Attorney Daryl Jones, who has been a prosecutor as well. Just what are we to make of all of this? What are we to make of the jury having a week, I guess, to think about it? And what about attorney-client privilege? There's a lot going on, but I think the overriding issue for the purposes of this show, given Reverend Jackson's historic work, no one has registered more people to vote in the history of the Republic, it has been documented than Reverend Jesse Jackson. He's registered more people to vote, millions upon millions. We've been fighting to get ex-felons' voting rights restored. That really is at the core of your citizenship. And Floridians, Republicans and Democrats, agreed with that. They voted overwhelmingly to restore the voting rights of felons. Now, President Trump, former President Trump, is a resident of Florida, and he's going to be allowed to vote. Some people who've tried to vote as ex-felons in Florida have been put in prison, they've been put in jail, or they've been threatened with that. So what do you make of that? Call us at 866-594-HOPE, 866-594-4673. Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson. Back in just a few minutes.
Your opinion counts. 1-866-594-HOPE. That's 1-866-594-4673.
Dr. Gibbs?
Oh, you have
I have CK.
yeah, Attorney Jones and Representative Myers.
Representative Myers?
Good morning.
How are you?
Doing well. How are you?
Good, good, good. Did Dr. Gibbs leave? Or is he still there?
He's gone. Is he supposed to be gone?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes, I'm sorry. I had to let him go because he had to go. And CK, I know you got to go at the top of the hour. But if you can speak to that, no. You gotta get going. Do your thing. Let me know what you're gonna do. But I will see you tomorrow early.
Okay.
Because
I will, and as soon as I get greater details, I'll let you know. But Santita, I will say, no matter where people stand on the spectrum of whether they agree with the jury verdict or not, I believe it's a sad day in American history. I mean, it's sad, it's embarrassing. We have, and the sadness and the embarrassment from my standpoint has much less to do with the fact that we were in a position where a former president was prosecuted, and has much more to do with the fact that a former president's conduct was consistently over the years, because this prosecution was based on conduct before he became president of the United States in 2016, that his conduct was so egregious that it warranted any kind of prosecution where a jury of his peers felt it was so bad that they would convict him across the board on every single count.
Well, you know,
I found no abuse. I mean,
I want you. There's some key questions that I want to ask you when we get back on the air. Because there are questions that have been bandied about, and I've been listening, looking, and you know me, I listen to people on the right and the left. Well, because I'm more curious than anything, and just having when I think of Dr. King having lived under the threat of prosecution, federal prosecution for his entire career, I'm always looking at these.
Don't make fun of me.
Oh, I am going to make fun of you. Are you serious right now? Oh my gosh. No, I didn't do this. Jeremy did this. I did not do this. I want you to know. Oh my gosh. I didn't do this. This is Jeremy. Him. No, it's okay. It's him. Yeah, I put him on camera. Okay. Controversy. Oh my gosh. Everybody, do not hold Santita Jackson responsible for any of this music today. This is Jeremy Geiger, my technical producer. I just put him on screen on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson. I'm Santita Jackson. I tease you, Jerry, but I wouldn't be able to do anything without you. So grateful for you. We are tied at the hip. Oh my gosh, controversy. Got a giggle from C.K. Hoffler. And of course, Daryl Jones is mute. And of course, our vaunted state representative from Wisconsin, Lakeisha Myers, is saying nothing. But you're like, oh, that's rich. Controversy. Well, it is controversy. We're talking about President Trump today, former President Trump, who, I mean, we have not since Eugene Debs 100 years ago ran for president from a jail cell, and getting 3 million votes in 1920 was not inconsequential, not insubstantial. But now we have the presumptive nominee of the Republican Party who is a convicted felon. And one wonders if he could vote. Well, Governor DeSantis, although he and his party have tried mightily to overturn the will of the Florida people, the people of Florida, should I say, Floridians, who voted overwhelmingly to restore the voting rights of ex-felons, he said, oh, no, he rushed to the microphone. No, he can vote. You just can't make this stuff up. So I want you to call us at 866-594. 866-594-HOPE. What do you think of this? What do you think of this? What do you think of this case? And Attorney C.K. Hoffler, you had a lot to say during the break, so let's get right to it, because I've been listening to a lot of conversations globally on the right and the left, right, and in between, and just people who are like, I'm just trying to figure out how this works, because people have questions about attorney-client privilege, of course, about the vote. You had questions about a jury who had a week after closing arguments to go home, or you're just like, oh, wait a minute, what is this? A 7-year-old charge that was revived. It was a misdemeanor, then it was upgraded to a Class C felony, which is the lowest grade of felony. Then they said, well, the judge said, if you can't find him guilty of felonies, then we'll kick it back to misdemeanors. I'm trying to figure it all out. But really, Reverend wanted to pivot off of the vote, because here we are. Ironically enough, former President Trump did not want ex-felons to vote. Now he is a full-on felon. So what say you now? And you are, of course, are a member of the bar in Florida. What is going on here?
That law that the people of Florida voted for, that was for ex-felons. And Donald Trump, former President Donald Trump, is not an ex-felon yet. He is not, if he is sentenced to time, whatever his sentence is, because he's a convicted felon, but he's not an ex-felon, meaning he hasn't served his time. So the restoration of rights happens when you served your time. And by the way, the over 1 million voters who were eligible to get their rights restored, yes, the Republican-led legislature opposed it and wanted to impose a poll tax on them. So this is the irony of all ironies, because former President Donald Trump was very much engaged in this dialogue in terms of whether they should have their rights restored, and he was opposed to that, as we know, is President Governor DeSantis. I think that's the irony of all ironies. Putting that irony aside, now former President Trump finds himself in the same position down the line, but he has to be sentenced. He has to, if he does time or whatever the penalty is, whatever the sentence is, he has to complete that before any rights would be restored. So I just want to draw that distinction, firstly. Secondly, it was a travesty. It has been a travesty how the DeSantis administration has treated formerly incarcerated people. A travesty, an absolute travesty. And it is beyond credulity that he would take this approach that he's taken, because it's completely inconsistent with what he does with the other citizens of Florida. Now, I do understand that we have a former president of the United States. I do understand that there's some novel things that are happening here with this case. I do disagree, as I said before, that this was a weak case. It probably didn't have the substance of the case in Georgia that District Attorney Fani Willis is prosecuting, who, by the way, won overwhelmingly here when she was up for re-election. So I will say that, yes, the cases were different. All 4 cases were different. But I thought, and I believe, that it is a strong case. It was a strong case. I said that publicly. It was just a different case. And for actions that happened before he became president of the United States. It's just a question of accountability. You know, a lot of people are held accountable and fight for accountability, former President Donald Trump, another bit of irony, was a law and justice president, holding people accountable for their actions. And now he, for the first time, is being held criminally accountable for his actions. That's a jury in New York. The one thing, people years ago, we talked about the late O.J. Simpson's trial. This country was so divided over the results of that trial. And I took the position then, whether I believe he knew about it, was involved in the murders of Nicole Simpson and her friend, whether he was involved in that or not, whether he did or not, a jury of his peers acquitted him. And even if I weren't a lawyer and hadn't been in practice for almost 40 years, I would say in this country, the one thing that I have respect for, the one thing that many of us, many Black and brown people have been saved from, is a jury verdict. And so when a jury speaks, sometimes we don't like what they say. And you're right, Santina, I do little commentary on Court TV really every week, sometimes 2, 3, 4 times a week on cases. And I don't get to pick the cases that I comment on. But the one thing I will say, that when the jury speaks and listens to and sits in front of the evidence, they are the ultimate arbiter of the fact. And when they speak, that's what this system is based on. We have to listen whether we like it or not. And this jury spoke resoundingly. And I may or may not like it. I may have issues with how sad and devastating, yes, it is devastating for us as a country, this nation, to be in a position of having one of our former presidents and someone who is currently campaigning to become president again, to be in this situation. But I will say this, it is his actions, not our actions, his actions, call them politically motivated or not, the timing of it, but his behavior, his conduct that took us to this place. That is what is most unfortunate. So now we're left with this crisis. And yes, we are in a crisis. This is a crisis. And when it comes to voting rights, a lot of people are saying they're so disgusted, not by the outcome of the case. They don't really care about the outcome of the case. They're just so disgusted that they may sit home and not vote. And all of these surveys and all this, and I know that we have to do polling, of whether this moved the needle for Donald Trump or moved the needle for the Democratic Party and all that. I don't really trust those surveys because those surveys have misled us in the past. One thing I did anticipate was that whether he was convicted or not would not at all impact his base. Not at all, because his base believed that this was a witch hunt. I disagree with that. There have been so many other cases, over 50, against a former president. But this is the first time he's been held criminally liable. That's the only difference. And if this had been former President Obama, when that jury rendered its verdict, he probably would have been let out and handcuffed.
But
forgive me if I'm just being too blunt.
No, but sure. But I think that but we've never really done that, unfortunately. And let me just say this, because we have presidents who really should be criminally liable for killing a lot of people all across the world. And there's some places where Henry Kissinger could not go and George Bush cannot go today, W. Bush, because they are viewed as war criminals. That having been said, because I think that's sad too. I'm looking at these more than millions. I mean, you've got millions of people all across the country who are really being denied their citizenship because they paid their debt to society. And they're not being allowed. I mean, the people of Florida, let's just zero in on Florida, one of your home states. The Republicans and Democrats said, hey, restore their rights. And then the Republican legislature walked right back in and they sought to overturn it. And then you had the Republican governor who helped them to do that, or certainly he was an advocate for that before he became governor. He runs to the microphone and says, hey, no, he can vote. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute.
Hypocrisy and the irony of all of it. Because when I was president of the National Bar Association, that was, as you know, voting was one of the 3 big areas that I focused on. And Barbara Arnwine and Daryl Jones helped me to construct, Barbara Einwand in particular, to construct my policy and how I was going to approach. And I will say also that your dad, Reverend Jackson, and the late Congressman John Lewis also helped me in constructing how I should lead the National Bar Association as it relates to civil rights and voting rights. I will say that. But Santita, that was a big thing. We teamed up with those who stood in solidarity with us, opposing the Republican legislature with their move to disenfranchise the voters of Florida, because the voters of Florida actually voted for this. And it was really draconian, it was oppressive, it was perceived as racist, and we opposed that. So it's ironic that here we are, 4 or 5 years later, in this situation. Here we are, we're the same governor who opposed allowing people who had served their time, paid their debt to society, whose rights should have been restored under Florida law, trying to enact measures so that they could not vote again. And he's bypassing all that, jumping over all of that and saying, oh yeah, for don't worry about it, former President Donald Trump. We're, of course, that doesn't apply to you. No, we're not. We're going to do whatever we need to do, change the laws, whatever, so you can vote. So that is a piece of irony that if you live in Florida, which I have done, if you practice in Florida, which I do, if you're sensitive to voting rights, which I am, that is something that just is disgusting. I'm going to call it how I see it. And I'm speaking for CK. I'm not speaking for any organization. I'm speaking for CK. I am disgusted by that trajectory, by that movement, by that hypocrisy, by that irony, because that confronts or it affronts the very thing that people lost their lives to ensure that we have, which is the right to vote. And because you made a mistake, like evidently the former president has made many mistakes, 34 convictions, because you make a mistake and you serve your time, you pay your debt to society, that doesn't mean society should throw you away like your yesterday's garbage. No. In this country, they should have their rights restored, and many states allow that, and Florida is one of them. So for this governor who has led the effort against, and most of those formerly incarcerated people were Black and brown, who's led that effort against them to prevent them from getting their rights, to say what he said is really, people should really listen to that. And you should be offended by that. And if you're not, you need to read up on that, because that is an aberration. That is what I perceive. Those are acts that are devastating to democracy.
I mean, and of course, you can catch you at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on WAOK Radio on Tuesday, and on Tuesday at 12 noon, hop on over to WOLDC so that you can hear Barbara Arnwine and Attorney Daryl Jones break things down. Of course, we'll be hearing more from him in the next hour, but I have a couple, 2 or 3 minutes here, and then, of course, I want to speak to Wisconsin State Representative Lakeisha Myers. What do you think of this, Attorney Jones? Will this put voting rights and the restoration of voting rights for millions of people across the country? Can we revive this discussion or make it just write it large, if you will, because of the ironic position that we find? I mean, it's just ironic that someone who pushed against letting felons vote, ex-felons vote, he's a felon now, and he wants his vote. Attorney Jones.
Good morning. And yeah, I think that CK certainly was firing on all cylinders as she was laying this out, because what are the positive things that can come out of all the negativity of what we're seeing right now? Is the process of seeing those that have been previously convicted as felons to be able to regain their voting rights, and the whole question as to why is it that the rules in Florida are different than the rules in Vermont, different than the rules in Illinois, different than the rules in Maryland? And, shouldn't it be, for instance, the Freedom to Vote Act is the act that's pending in Congress right now. Shouldn't it be that wherever you are in the country, that your restoration of your voting rights is the same? I mean, that's how it should be. Then we wouldn't be in this position where we're trying to figure it all out. And when you get to Representative Myers in Wisconsin, my goodness, their system of trying to figure out when your rights are restored is completely different than Florida. So it's good that we're having this discussion. because this is a discussion that needs to happen. And folks need to know that there is legislation, federal legislation that's pending right now that could really just, level the playing field for when a formerly convicted person who's had their voting rights removed can have them reinstated. And it's one of the things that we need to really push on. Barbara Einwein and I go across the country, and this is one of the big conversations, is the restoration of rights for those that have previously convicted of felony crimes. And, you're just right on point, Santita, right on point, CK. What's happening down in Florida with regards to former President Trump is incredible, because ordinarily, had his crime occurred in Florida and he convicted in Florida of the felony, he would have lost that right to vote. But then we have the governor of Florida, right, DeSantis, that says, well, even if this had happened in Florida, I would grant him clemency so that he could still vote, going against what his legislature did down there with regards to returning the rights of citizens to returning.
Wait a minute, Daryl. For everybody else. Stay right there. Well, good. Wait a minute. State Representative Lakeisha Myers, for everybody else. I mean, he's standing between Donald Trump and millions of people just in the state of Florida alone. He said, no, he can vote. Like, you've been going to the homes of Black people, your police, and they have been intimidating people in Florida, telling them that if they try to vote, they will be arrested and they will be put back in jail. You do have this hanging over your head. You're on probation, right? I mean, all of that. You have a record, right? You don't want to go back. I mean, this is unbelievable. And so while we're looking, absolutely, and I don't want us to get caught up in the sideshow. I'm not saying that being convicted of 34 felonies, although I must say, I do have questions about how this was all conducted. And I have questions about how this was conducted, not because I'm a Trump supporter, because I'm not, but because I believe in fair play. And if you are Black or brown, and if you just keep on living, I don't care what color you are, somebody who's going to have to face this judicial system. And I just want to make sure that it's just for everybody. That's my point. I want to know what happened here. But let's look at this vote. Reverend Frank Watkins, may he rest in peace, said, the reason I fight for the right to vote is because your right to vote makes you a citizen. It is the right that makes all other rights possible. And to know to have met some of the people that I've met throughout my life, Attorney C.K. Hoffman, Attorney Daryl Jones, and Wisconsin State Representative Lakeisha Myers, and to see the sadness in the eyes of people who've come out of prison, who are trying to get their lives together, who are trying to really get back into society. And when they tell me, well, no, I can't vote, it breaks my heart, because it tears at someone's manhood. It tears at someone's womanhood. And no one deserves that. But you see, they're still lifting him up. Okay, lift him up. Because when you fall down, I think as a Christian, you should lift people up. But my goodness, lift everybody up. How about that piece? Back with more Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson. I want you to go to rainbowpush.org. Come on to the convention. August 13th through the 17th. The Democratic Convention begins on the 18th, but Chicago's going to be hopping all summer long. Because people are coming to Chicago to express themselves. Will they be arrested? Doubtless there will be many arrests. How is this all going to go? Well, we're going to be having our own People's Convention at Rainbow Push, August 13th through the 17th. Of course, our chair, Attorney C.K. Hoffman, will be there. Of course, Attorney Daryl Jones will be there. Hopefully you too will be there. Lakeisha Myers, Wisconsin State Representative. Because we have a lot of issues that we need to talk about, and fundamental to this struggle that Reverend Jackson has been in for more than 60 years is the right to vote. Indeed, he has said, Dr. King said, that this is the crown jewel of the civil rights movement. Back with more of Keep Hope Alive in just a few minutes. I can't believe you did this to me. That is a bad song,
From
though.
Reverend Jesse Jackson.
Okay. Okay. You CK, you want to send me a technical producer so I can get rid of this one before he gets us all into trouble?
You know, I love the song.
Look, I can't get rid of him. We're tied at the hip, but I'm like, he said, before he put it on, he looked at me and he said, okay, Santita, don't get mad. I was like, oh, we're literally about to come on like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm like, okay, what did he come up with? Prince in his diaper? Because that's when he was wearing his diaper and trench coat.
I know.
Okay.
I know, but I love it.
I know. Well, but we all remember he was wearing them platform boots. No.
Right.
Them pointy toe boots, stiletto heels, diaper, and that fabulous coat. And we all thought he was the cutest thing, finest thing. I'm like, what?
Controversy.
Controversy.
Wait a minute. He wore a diaper.
Where were you, Darryl?
Daryl Jones said, wait a minute. Daryl Jones said, I said, wait a minute. Hold on just a minute. I just said, like, yeah.
Child, please. Yes. Controversy.
Maybe it wasn't called a diaper. It was called a bloomer.
Girl, I called it a diaper. I was like, it looks like a diaper to me. Look at them pins. Child, please. You know it was a diaper. We just thought he was cute and we were young and dumb. He wasn't wearing diapers for the rest of his life. He put on some clothes. Woo, you can't make this stuff up. Lord have mercy. So, golly, y'all, this is just too much. It really is.
But see, the Florida piece is really, that's big. That's huge. Daryl, great to hear your voice. And so happy that you and Barbara are always on point with this. You remember when it was not too long ago, when we were fighting in Florida. I'm trying to think of the name of the group that's escaping me right now. With the poll tax and raising money to enable people to pay that poll tax and getting money from organizations because people didn't even know how much they owed Santita. So they would go, just to tell you how corrupt the system was, they would say, okay, I owe money. Okay, all right. I owe fees. How much do I owe?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there was no answer. They couldn't help them.
Right. Yeah,
see, and to me, that's a discussion that we've got to push that discussion because this really is a distraction from all these people. That's why, who should be voting. That's why signing an executive order on voting rights is so important. I mean, these are votes that Biden needs, and more than that, we need it because we need him and everybody else who would be voting on this particular agenda. We need them in office. I don't get it.
And CK, the other part is that Michael Bloomberg was actually financing a lot of the funding for the people that couldn't afford to pay the fees. And the Florida Rights Restoration Coalition with Desmond Meade were working to connect the folks that owed the fees with the folks that had the money so they could pay the fees. And actually, it was the Florida Rights Restoration Coalition that put together the data, the information that was feeding it to the state of Florida to tell them how much people owe. Because
that was
figure it out.
How much time do we have?
Absolutely, and that was the track. That was the group I was. Their name escaped me.
Okay,
You're
CK.
absolutely right, Daryl.
CK, I know you're leaving, but we're gonna have less than a minute when we get back.
Okay.
Can you give me
my views?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Do you want to say something in 30 seconds, like when you're going to be on Court TV? Hello.
Oh God. Okay. I got to look at my schedule.
I'll just tell them to look at Court TV. Just to keep looking at it, Lord. Stay right here.
Encourage people to write that letter to Santita and have CK anchor Court TV.
Now, look, I'm telling you, she needs to have a show. How about that? Thank you, Dan Abrams. Stand by.
5, 4, 3, 2.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Keep Hope Alive. Stay tuned for the second hour. We're talking about our voting rights and the Trump decision. He is now a felon. And in a state where Republicans have tried to push felons away from the vote, even though the people said, no, we want their voting rights restored. The governor ran to the microphone, Republican governor, and said, hey, no, not him. He can vote. Boy, catch CK Hoffler on Court TV. And you know what? We are leading a drive to get her a show on Court TV. I'm not ashamed of it. That's right. And you can catch her on WAOK on Tuesdays at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And Attorney Darrell Jones is coming up in just a few minutes on WOL DC at 12 noon every Tuesday. Back in just a minute.
For listening. Reverend
Okay,
Jesse Jackson.
CK.
For more information on upcoming shows and
Yes.
guests,
Yes,
please
because
visit
I'm
our
just gonna push
website,
it. Because I know you're like, oh, I'm gonna do something else. Oh no. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
No, I you know what it is. I'm practicing law first, and then doing all the rest of my spare time because sometimes it just, I'm focused but I am very focused on it because I do believe that it's a good voice to have there.
I'm not mad at a sister. I'm just trying to say, hello, help me. Just help me. Because we need your voice there. I mean, it is really
Right.
that simple,
And now Court TV, I don't know if you know this, that Scripps is in the same line of ownership as Court TV. So Scripps has a very, very powerful voice. In fact, once I was on Court TV and they were broadcasting our annual convention at Rainbow Push on Scripps.
Okay.
And some of the Court TV producers told me, oh yeah, we saw the convention. So what I'm saying is I think that there's a lot that many of us can do in that space. I just am.
Well, I've got a lot for us to talk about when I see you tomorrow. It'll be
Okay.
quick. I'll make it
Okay.
real quick.
Good morning.
Okay.
And welcome
All right. Sounds
to
good.
Keep Hope Alive. with
Okay, we're
Reverend
coming up.
Jesse
We're gonna do this very quickly, okay?
Okay.
Do you want to say anything before you go?
I'll just sum up in like 10 seconds.
Oh, okay. Great.
Yep. So it'll be real quick.
1-866-594-4673. And now, the Reverend Jesse Jackson.
Oh my goodness. Welcome back to Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson, the second hour on This is Santita Jackson. It's Sunday, June 2nd, 2024. The Rainbow Push International Conference, August 13th through the 17th. If those dates sound familiar, yes, the Democratic Convention will be beginning as our convention is not ending, but kind of leading into it. Not for the sake of this is not a Democratic convention. This is a people's convention, and we want you to be there. We want you to be there because we want to use all of this energy that's coming to Chicago. We want this energy to be used constructively. We've got a lot of issues to talk about: inflation, poverty. We've got to talk about our schools. We talk about healthcare. We've got to talk about the vote, police reform. We got a lot to deal with, and we're going to be doing that at Rainbow Push, August 13th through the 17th. Go to rainbowpush.org. Do not let cost be a prohibition. Just come and be with the people at 930 East 50th Street. It's going to be something fantastic. Yvonne, I hope to see you here. You showed up last year, girl. When you come, you got to come a little early because we've got a lot of work to do. Everybody, please call us at 866-594-HOPE, 866-594-4673. I understand we have 3 callers on the line. We're going to get to you on the other side of the break, but we're going to be talking about the 34 convictions, felonious convictions of Donald Trump, the former president. He is the presumptive nominee of the Republican Party. He raised more than $30 million in the 24-hour period after his conviction. Has this energized his base? And what about the discussion about the vote? Because under ordinary circumstances, his vote would be questioned. I would imagine if you had a high-profile trial, given the question about the vote in Florida, even though people voted for it overwhelmingly to restore the rights of ex-felons, Republicans ran into the legislature, which they lead, which they have the majority through gerrymandering, by the way. They would have said, hey, they did say, no, we've got to overturn this. Now, can you imagine a judge who's not completely familiar with the law? They would probably block someone from voting. Indeed, in Florida, they have been pushing people, CK. The police have been going to people's homes, telling them that they cannot vote. They've been threatening them. That's been happening. It's been on tape. Oh, CK, this, as we look at what's happening with with former President Trump, Reverend Jackson said, no, let's look at the vote and felons, because, yes, please.
Santita, as I leave, I would encourage us to do exactly what Reverend Jackson said. Yes, this is unfortunate what has happened to the former president of this country, but as opposed to focusing too much on what he did, didn't do, what's going to happen to him, we need to focus on people who need to vote. It's important now, more important than ever, to vote. For those who are contemplating just staying home because they're disgusted, there are many times in history when we were very disgusted, when we were being hanged, when we were being lynched, when we were being, outlawed for no good reason. But we still have to fight for those things that are important to us. And the only way to do that is to vote. So I would encourage people to vote. Watch what's happening, yes, on these trials, but that's a side check. Don't lose focus on the fact that we've got an election. Don't sit home because you are discouraged. Get up and try to make a difference and fight for what you believe in, because there's so many issues, Santita, as you said, at Rainbow Push, we are going to address those issues. And by the way, Rainbow Push has always been that place for people to come to get trained, to express themselves. You want to know how you're supposed to protest, the rules of engagement, what voting means in today's environment, all of those things, NIL. What is NIL? How is NIL a civil rights issue? How is it a social justice issue? Come to our convention. These are the things that are plaguing our community. And let's not get sidetracked by the 34 count conviction of our former president, because he's going to do what he's going to do. His base will do what they are going to do. And so we need to be about the business of doing what we must do. So come to our convention and vote.
Amen to that. Stay right there. 866-594-HOPE, 866-594-4673. Did you know that in Attorney Daryl Jones' other life, he's the chairman of the Transformative Justice Coalition, one of the leading advocates for the vote in the country today. But he's been a prosecutor, so he can break this case for us. He can break it down for us. But some of the most severe cases of voter suppression come out of Wisconsin. Oh, yes. The Wisconsin of Madison, the Wisconsin of Milwaukee. We've got Wisconsin State Representative Lakeisha Myers here to talk with us about this and about the restoration of voting rights for people who've already paid their debt to society. Let's talk about it. August 13th through the 17th, Rainbow Push International Conference. You don't want to miss it. It's going to be fantastic. And it's going to be all of us getting together, eating together, talking through the issues of the day. As people really come to Chicago to express their opinions, there will be protests in Chicago. I don't care how much the state and the city council try to limit it. That's going to happen. So please call us at 866-594-HOPE. Want to hear your thoughts about this. And of course, we're dedicating the show today to Marion Robinson, Mrs. Marion Robinson, the mother of our forever First Lady, Michelle Obama, and her brother, Craig Robinson, both of whom are very near and dear to my heart. And I've known her since I was about 14 years of age. A wonderful, wonderful woman, a great, great woman, a marathoner, and a great encourager. And we first knew her as Mom. That's what she's always been. And then she became America's grandmother-in-chief. We thank God for her life and for her legacy, for the protection that she gave her children, for the love that she gave to all of the children in her children's orbit. And I'm so glad that I was among those persons. And we just thank God that she's been able to be rejoined once again with the great love of her life, aside from her children and grandchildren, her husband, Frazier Robinson, who preceded her in death more than 30 years ago. I can remember Mr. Robinson, Jeremy, driving us to school some mornings. It was either my mother, Jim Camps, or Dr. Randall Johnson, or Mr. Robinson, because we all took the L together. In Chicago, we have the L, the elevated train, not the subway, even though it does go underground. And it was the world's longest car, Jeremy. But one day he got out the car, and one of the things that surprised me was that he was on braces. And he'd been severely disabled by disease. And yet he didn't miss a day at work. He didn't miss a day with his family. And that was his wife. And she was his support. And she was everyone's support. And so we just thank God for her today. Look at the sweep of her life. Can you imagine all that she saw? And then she was able to live in the White House. that our forebears built. What a life. What a life. God bless you, Mary Robinson and Bill Walton, who was a freedom fighter in the NBA. Many people thought he was odd and crazy because he was a peacenik and he was someone who fought for equal rights for black people. Just a wonderful human being. And when we saw him at the All-Star game, Jeremy, just a few months ago, when he saw my father, his eyes lit up and he ran over and he gave him a kiss. Reverend, it's so good to see you. What a wonderful human being. What a wonderful human being, Bill Walton. Wow. We just thank God that these people walked with us and walked this way. May they be forever blessed, as our Jewish brothers and sisters say. Back with more of Keep Hope Alive in just a few minutes.
My work is so hard, give me water, I'm thirsty. My work is so hard.
Your opinion counts. 1-866-59.
Now you have Anita, Chris, Renee, and Fred.
Okay, let me say hello to everybody. Representative Myers?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, I got you. I'm going to give this to you all, and then we're going to have some of these callers weigh in. They've been holding for a minute, as have you. But if you can, oh, wow. I hope we'll begin to really talk about the restoration of these voting rights. Oh. Just hold on. I'm sorry. I'm trying to send. So, Daryl, you'll be joining us this afternoon? Daryl, are you there? Is he still there? Okay.
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I'll be there.
Okay, great.
Senator Myers, I had a chance to run across Mandela Barnes.
Huh?
I ran across Mandela Barnes in New York about a week or so ago.
Oh, really?
Oh, wow. Okay.
He's still doing the, he was doing a political action of PAC that's in Wisconsin, is that right?
Yes, he has the long run PAC that he has, and he is working as the executive director of Power to the Polls.
Y'all have some excitement coming there next month.
Yes, we do. And with this conviction, I feel like it's going to be more of a mess than anything else.
Then you have the debate just before the convention. Or is it
I'm so excited, Daryl. Can't you hear it in my voice? I'm so excited.
I love it. I love it. Well, look, that's why I'm excited about the Push Convention. I think that's going to be fun.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Because you just have to get everybody involved, right? And, you want it to be well, I think the people are coming to Chicago to be constructive, not destructive. But at some point, you need a focus and people need to know what to do. Because there is, some people are despairing of what's going on. I am not, to be honest with you. I don't think this is a sad moment. I think this is a wonderful moment because things could not go. We have been fighting for justice for 400 plus years. So let's not act like what was happening before was right. Now, I think it's an opportunity for us to get things right, period. I don't feel sad about this moment at all. All these unconvicted criminals who've been sitting in the Oval Office, yeah, I said it, killing people all over the world. People see us as the biggest terrorist organization on earth. Yes, they do. And that cannot continue. America's business cannot be war. That's crazy. So you know what? Maybe my cousin Lauren said that America's having an honest moment. Because you had a whole lot of people in that office. Look, Henry Kissinger couldn't go to many countries on earth, Representative Myers and Attorney Jones. Hello, you know it's true.
That's true.
He couldn't. And George W. Bush can't right now. War crimes, that's what they're called. Hello.
You're listening to Keep
So let me get quick comments from everybody, and then I'm going to pivot right to you. Well, no, let me get some opening remarks from you and you, Daryl, and you, Lakeisha, and then we'll hear what these callers have to say.
Okay.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson. I am Santita Jackson. The music today is brought to you by Jeremy Geiger, my technical producer. Oh, yeah. Let me put him back on camera. That's right. No, don't you hide. Don't you hide. Oh, no. I love this.
I love OJ.
That's my guy. All right, everybody. The Rainbow Push International Conference will be leading into the Democratic National Convention in terms of our dates, and right after the Republican Convention, August 13th through the 17th. Go to rainbowpush.org. Everybody just come on. We're going to have a good old time, and we're going to get our little coins together and get something to eat. We won't have individual chicken dinners. We will have buckets like we used to do. You know, we used to share. Think about that, everybody. So, everybody, I want to hear from you today about what you think about the Trump verdicts and the fact that, you know, the Republican governor did something that he won't do for millions of Floridians. He ensured that former President Trump, as a felon who has not paid his debt to society, appeals notwithstanding, that he will be able to vote. Even though the people of Florida, a bipartisan grouping of Floridians, said to restore the voting rights of Floridians who have served their time, ex-felons. And that Republican legislature went to work to overturn the will of the people. And they're trying to do it again, but in reverse. You can't make this stuff up. Attorney Daryl Jones, what do you make of this?
To Attorney Alvin Bragg for sticking to his grounds in the New York City Trump prosecution. When all doubted him, he stuck to his morals, he stuck to his beliefs, and he ended up with a conviction that many said he wouldn't get. But I tell you, also kudos to the jury, because the jury has done something in the Trump case that the Supreme Court hasn't done yet in holding him accountable and force him to go forward, that Judge Cannon in Florida hasn't done yet, and forcing them to be accountable. So certainly, the jury, the people in the city of Manhattan in New York really deserve a lot of credit for hanging in there in those trying circumstances and coming through with a unanimous verdict. Just incredible. Now, what's happening post all of that with the voting rights and the restoration of rights? We've got to be certain that we lift this up, because the question became, does former President Trump have the right to vote in the state of Florida? And he will have the right to vote. But he only has the right to vote, even though he's now a convicted felon, because in the state of Florida, they're going to yield to the state where the conviction occurred. And the conviction here occurred in the state of New York. And New York is what I call a feet in the street state. And a feet in the street state means that if your feet are in the street, you can vote. So if you're on parole, probation, whatever, it doesn't make a difference. If you're not incarcerated in the state of New York, you can vote. And because of that, he will be able to cast a vote in the state of New York, because he was not in the state of Florida, because he was not convicted of a Florida felony. That's what saves him. So it's interesting that a person who is against a felony restoration, felony voting rights, is now a convicted felon and will be able to vote because of the progressive policies of the state of New York.
Do you think that we have an opportunity now to reopen this discussion nationally about the restoration of the rights of people who are ex-felons or pleas or even felons? And I raised this question, and of course you and State Representative Myers can speak to this. Many prisons help to populate congressional districts, right? I mean, that's what they're used to do. I mean, people who can't vote, they're counted as people who are represented by members of Congress. I mean, and members of state legislatures. They comprise voting districts, and yet they don't have the right to vote, Daryl.
We estimate that there's somewhere between 14 and 16 million impacted people when we start looking at those that are impacted by felony disenfranchisement and voting rights. And that's about 6% of the voting population if
Wow.
they're able to vote. So they're directly impacted, impact and can have an impact on the elections. But when we have all of these policies, all these different decisions across the country as to when those that are formerly convicted of felons can regain and restore their voting rights, it causes a lot of confusion. And that's what we see happening in Florida. There's just a lot of confusion with regards to who can vote. So, we need to redirect the conversation as to, the restoration of voting rights, when they're restored, how they're restored, and should it be uniform across the country? Why should it be that if I'm convicted of a felony in Maryland, as soon as my feet are in the street, I can vote? But if I'm convicted of a felony in Mississippi, it takes a vote of the General Assembly and sign off of the governor for each individual to be able to regain their voting rights if they're convicted of a felony. It should be something that's uniform.
Representative Myers, Wisconsin State Representative Myers, voting in your state and voting in Milwaukee, which you represent, can be very interesting. I mean, the closing of polls, and that's happening all over the country. We saw it in Kentucky, but we've seen it happen in Milwaukee. But we're looking at many Black and brown people. Absolutely, you're almost fast track to the courts. Somebody's going to somebody has been arrested, or they're going to be. And somebody's going to be convicted of a felony in your family, someone you know, someone you love. And after you've paid your debt to society, you can't vote. But now we're seeing a president who is a convicted felon who has not paid his debt to society. Appeals notwithstanding, he can vote. I mean, what does that say to you? I mean, and how, and just, I mean, when you look at a state legislature who tried to overturn the will of the people, and you're a member of one of these contentious state legislatures, because that's how I met your colleague, your former colleague. They were running away, trying to prevent a right-wing governor from really rolling over the people. Talk to me. What do you make of the governor running to the microphone to say, no, he can vote now? I mean, he was defending him. Representative Myers.
Say if I would quote, who was the Don King that said, "Only in America." So that's the first thing I would say about that, because the bar now gets moved and changed depending on who you are, and that's not how our justice system should be built. It should be equal across the board. I agree wholeheartedly with Attorney Jones about the differences in states and how we handle voting rights. In the state of Wisconsin, if you are still on paper or on probation, you cannot vote even after you have served your time in prison. There are people who, will go years because the attachment of supervision to them will be probably 10 to 20 years after they have been released from prison. So therefore, some of them will not have their voting rights restored within their lifetime. So to a lot of people, that can be, a lifetime sentence. You were absolutely correct with talking about the fact that, the way we gerrymander prisons in the state of Wisconsin and elsewhere, these people count as entire census tracts for the purposes of financial gain for congressional districts, but they do not have voting rights attached to them while they are incarcerated. And the fact that Donald Trump would be able to vote because he had a New York case or was convicted in New York versus in a Florida courtroom shows the balance of inequity that exists when it comes to allowing states to handle voting rights. At this particular point in time, we need Congress to actually do something, and that would be to restore the right to vote for people who are convicted felons.
When you're talking to voters, I mean, how do they react to this? I mean, because it's, I mean, this is what we personalize this with Donald Trump, but this is bigger, so much bigger than him, Representative Myers.
So there must be a fundamental shift in how we think about how we incarcerate people and what that looks like. I've worked in a prison. I was an education director in a prison, in a state prison in Wisconsin. And what I learned in that time was that a lot of people get their information about prison and how we incarcerate based on television versus in real life. Until they know someone who has been incarcerated or has a family member or look at it and it's closer to them if their front door or near them with a family member or a friend, then they become impassioned about, you know, the rights of people who are in prison. Because we don't think about them. It's like, oh, prison is a place you go when you did something bad, and we don't think about those people. But then when it hits closer to home, you understand the nuances and, the stripping away of rights and, the 13th Amendment loophole where slavery is still available and operational in the United States when you have a felony. So all of those things play more when you understand and it's closer to you than when it's not. So the fact that we incarcerate more people in the United States than any other country in the world should tell people a whole lot about how we feel about them. This is not only just an incarceration issue, it's an economic one. Because when you take away folks' right to vote, but you can still tax them, then we have taxation without representation. So now you have a different conversation that comes into play. So I think that we have to do more advocacy and more work to get people to understand the nuances that exist. When you have folks who are formerly incarcerated, what that does to their lives, how it impedes their ability to work, how it impedes their ability to, to operate in the United States. That tagline of a felon doesn't end once you leave the prison gate. It is something that is somewhat of a noose around your neck as you continue to operate.
And it is dehumanizing, and it's meant to humiliate people, and that is what is, to me, most onerous about this. I had a young man who was helping me do some work, and he was so industrious, and just the way he moved. I said, son, because he's young enough to be my child. I said, and you want to establish that relationship with people because I like being an elder. I really do. And I want to share. I said, son, tell me about yourself. It turns out he had gone to one of the top technical schools in the country here. He had gotten into trouble with the law, went to prison. And the first thing he said to me was, well, I do want to work. I really love working. And he said, but I had a little something in my past. I said, you went to prison, right? He said, yes. I said, okay. You made that error. I said, and now that's behind you. That's in your rearview mirror. And when I said that to him, just giving him a little bit of grace, which we all need, his whole demeanor changed. Think about that, everybody. Would you like to be judged on your worst moment? Think about that. Let me go to Chris. Chris, what's on your mind, sweetie? I have a couple of minutes before we go to break. Thank you so much for holding.
Okay, good morning. Thank you, guys. So, the language of the morning applies divided and language is not just from kind of generic language. Trump tried to run off with it. They were going to kill which is misinformation. Trump is not quite together with it. He was able to spend over $hundreds of millions in legal fees. He was duly convicted in the sexual assault case by his peers. He was also duly convicted of falsifying records with his James case, overvaluing property, getting money
Mm-hmm. No, but his daughter also does work for the Democrats. I'm not making a case for Trump, Chris. What I'm saying is, for all of us, and I had a brother who went to prison. I have an uncle they were trying to keep him in prison forever. He just got out a few months ago. So I'm not untouched by this. And I know people who've been to prison. One of the things that concerns me is, we'll do this on my show tomorrow on AM 950 radio in Milwaukee. I mean, excuse me, not in Milwaukee. I've got you on the brain. In Minneapolis, St. Paul. I just don't. I want to see the playing field leveled, because even when it came to Tish James' case, and I have so much admiration and respect for her, everybody, the valuation of properties is relative, and that's what's dangerous. You got to put white pictures on your walls if you want to get a higher appraisal of your property, which is awful. I mean, one of the things that we've seen with Trump and all this is that this is a big shell game. If you get on the Forbes list, you can get a bank loan. But most of us can't get a bank loan for any reason. Stay right here, Chris. Let's talk during the break. More of Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson in just a few minutes. August 13th through the 17th, Rainbow Push Convention. You've got to be there. Back in just a minute. Your opinion.
I had to let Chris go.
Can I speak to Chris?
I had to let him go.
Oh, we
I thought
had to
you
let him
wanted
go.
to let him
Oh,
go.
okay. I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry, Chris. It was my mistake. We let you go, but I certainly did want you to speak about this. Do we still have Anita?
Yeah, Anita, Renee, Fred, and Chapeau's also on.
We have Brett, Fred,
Renee, Anita, and Chapeau.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay, you all. We have a lot of callers, so it's interesting when we talk about this aspect of it. This is like touched the nerve, Daryl and Representative Myers. It, just as opposed to just talking about Trump, when you talk about people and their voting rights and who gets them and who doesn't.
Oh, absolutely. And and one of the things people miss into this when we're talking about the restoration of voting rights for formerly convicted people,
Okay, wait a minute. I'm going to have him bring you up so that we can hear you, because I can barely hear you. Can you bring him up a little bit?
He is up.
Oh, okay. All right. Can you bring up your the volume on your phone, Daryl?
Is that better?
That's much better.
Okay. One of the things we're talking about, the restoration of rights for people that are formerly convicted of felons, is that there's a larger sphere of influence that they actually have. It's not just the individual, because the individual then influences the people that are around them, their children, their spouses, everyone, and family members, telling them don't vote, don't get involved in the voting process. So the impact of the disenfranchisement of those that are formerly convicted of felons is much greater than the singular number that we look at. So when we talk about the 14 to 16 million that are impacted, it's a greater number. And then it goes beyond that, because most of the people in our society in the United States, they think that a person that's convicted of a felony, regardless of the state they're in, that they can't vote anymore. It's the first thing they say, can't vote anymore. You're convicted of a felony. There's no effort that is taken by elected officials or anyone else, no campaign that goes out to let people know what the state of the law is. Who is it that can actually vote now? Because it's been for so long, post Civil War, right? It's been for so long.
No, hold that thought. I
indoctrinated.
want you to come on with that before we go to the callers, okay?
Okay.
Oh, no, really, because that's something we're going to have to push during this campaign season, I think. Stand by.
Early in the morning, they get that bass. Just can't believe all the things people say.
Gotcha. Back with more Keep Hope Alive. Before we get to the rest of the callers, you were making a really tremendous point during the break. Attorney Daryl Jones, of course, you can catch him and Barbara Arnwine on WOL every Tuesday at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. You don't want to miss it. The point you were making about the post-Civil War period, because, there's an exception. We were freed except for if we go to jail, right?
Exactly, Cynthia, you're right on the point. Because what happened post-Civil War was that the black men were then given the right to vote, and so once the black men got the right to vote, things started to change with regards to the elected officials. So what the white response to that was to put in place this type of disenfranchisement activity for people that are convicted of felonies and convicted of various crimes, and then they would start arresting and convicting these African American men of these crimes, which would remove their right to vote. Well, what ultimately happens is that this continues to grow. Even to today, it continues to grow. And what becomes set in the psyche of the American voter today, number one, is that if I'm convicted of a felony, I do not have the right to vote. I've lost my right to vote. And that's regardless of the state that people are in. Well, what people don't know that there have been so many changes in various states' laws that enables people to be able to vote, even if they have what they say an F on their record, a felony on their record. But there's no campaign that's underway to educate people, to let them know the changes that are there. So the changes may occur, but to reach the people that are actually impacted by it, there's no effort that's really put in there. Individual organizations are putting great effort, but in terms of a governmental piece to go after them, elected officials going after them, they don't do that. That generally don't do that, and that generally doesn't happen. So it's always important that people go to vote.org. Vote.org will break it down as to whether or not a person who has been previously convicted of a felony has the right to vote by that state. It all goes by that state's law. And so, Gina, that's the reason why Barbara Arnwine and I and Black Voters Matter and many of the other organizations that are with us are fighting for the Freedom to Vote Act. Because what the Freedom to Vote Act would do, and that's an act that's before Congress, what that would do, it would simply level the playing field. We're not going to have all this stuff about, every state has a different rule with regards to, when you regain your right to vote. Everybody should operate by the same set of rules. If the rule is your feet are in the street, you can vote. That means if you're not incarcerated, you can vote because of a felony. That's what the rule should be. But that would just, calm down all of the rough seas of confusion that exist across the country, Santia.
Well, you know what? We have got a lot of people who want to weigh in on this. It's interesting. Reverend is on it. Representative Myers and Attorney Jones, he said, no, let's zero in on this. Everything else is background talk. So let's go to, very quickly, let's go to you, Anita. Anita, what's on your mind? You got a couple of minutes?
Well, I blame the party.
Because when Hillary was running with Donald Trump, I looked and I said, the politicians are not figuring out what human beings need. Okay, and I suggested that Jonathan Jackson would run for president no more than to get in there and debate the issues where he would have to draw out of them what the solutions were. So the civil rights movement has been kicked away, and we're running for money. All Americans is running for money. We're not having children. We still don't pay our bills, even though we don't have children. And old people would pay their bills and raise children and send people to school to go to wars and all kinds of things, okay? So we got what we asked for. We wanted just money, and we wanted a politician in there that didn't understand civil rights. So we got what we were looking for, nothing. And we had a chance to bring in the civil rights movement to debate the issues, and we don't. So we get what we get, and I'm proud for the American people that God gave them the will to do whatever they want to do, and they mess up every time. And I'm sorry, Santita, that they do not respect what your father has spent many years doing. And Martin Luther King's family probably is not thinking cute about the American public not using their democracy correctly.
Well, Anita has spoken, everybody. Anita has spoken, but to be fair, we've gone to so many places and people come up to Reverend and they do say, many people appreciate what he's done. A lot of others don't understand it, and I get it. But so many people have given him so much honor, and I want to thank them for that. But as my father said, really, if you need things, you don't deserve it. You just do things for the right reason. And so there you go. Let me go to Renee. Renee, what's on your mind? Thank you, Renee.
Oligarchs and the script writers are quite amused right now, or even laughing their heads off at the current scene in our democracy and the race to the White House. They gave us a race. They gave us a race between two actors who had a high unlikability rating and said, these are your two leading men. On the one hand, you have Genocide Joe, who broke the law but was deemed too old or senile to be held accountable. And he's also currently breaking the law, the Leahy law, as he gives weapons for mass destruction and for genocide. Then you have, on the other side, you have a man who was going to be brought up on charges in different states and who has now been convicted on how many charges? Like 34 charges. So we have him as a convicted felon. And the drama doesn't stop there. They banned other actors from even being on the stage. They wrote them off. They didn't let them, the Democrats said nobody else can run. It's just him. And then the Republicans, they did have some debates and stuff, but they already had decided, the script writers had decided who was going to be on that stage. And meanwhile, in the background, there's a genocide going on in Gaza, and our president who's in power is funding it. And the other guy said he would wipe them out too. These are our choices that they're telling us. It's only them, even though there are some other people running for president, but the script says no, we can't have any other people coming up in this movie. They're just bit players. In fact, don't even think about Jill Stein or Cornel West, or I think her name is Dela Cruz. People who make a lot of sense and who people actually agree with their stances on issues. They're like, no, keep your eyes on the two we have here. And you have the man who's been convicted and he can run for president. Meanwhile, you've got so many people, especially in southern states, who can never vote, but he can run for president. And these people can't vote, but you have people in the two whitest states in the country who can vote while they're incarcerated, and they can definitely vote when they get out of prison. What irony, what injustices, how much are we going to let happen? We need to walk out of that movie, turn off that channel, and we need to get out there and either force the Democrats to put somebody else in Joe Biden's place, even though I don't think he'll really be on the ballot in November. I think they will replace him. But we need to start being active participants instead of just taking whatever they put in front of us and telling us these are your choices. Thanks for letting me rant.
No, I don't. Well, I don't think you were ranting. I think you were expressing, and you are free to do that here. Indeed, I think that one of the gifts of this moment, and really, we're being shown the hypocrisy of the system, how unevenly laws and conventions and folkways and mores are applied. Don't be mad with Trump. Be grateful for this moment, because you see how the system really is. He and Elizabeth Warren said it was rigged. He said, you know what, I paid the taxes that the code says I can pay. Yeah, it's true. Don't get mad with me. Get mad with the folks who write these laws, corporations who overtake people. No, it's okay. They have overtaken, the oligarchs have overtaken the system. That's what you should be angry. That's what we should be angry about. And more than that, don't just get it mad. Get active. Renee, very quickly. Well, and Americans are going to push back on that, and we should. No, we should. I mean, what is this? I'm supposed to throw out the First Amendment? What? No. Then you got to throw out freedom of religion too. Okay, freedom to petition, freedom to freely assemble, peaceably assemble. Oh, no. You got to throw a lot of things out. The First Amendment it didn't just cover speech. There were 5 pillars. Sending you so much love, Renee. Absolutely. Let me go to Fred. Fred, what's on your mind today?
Hello, years ago, careful what you vote for, just like this. I got 4 points. Mentioned that it is precedent for the head of state to be a convicted felon. Nelson Mandela did 26 years. And the ironic part about it, the Christians of the world, they would be all for Nelson Mandela becoming president of South Africa. Point number 2.
Well,
I can't.
but you know what they're really talking about the United States. But I hear your point. You make your point.
Now the United States is number 12. Now, point number 3. Like voting for Joe Biden to this thing called Black Rich. That's when you made $50,000 or $60,000 a year. You had your own apartment, rent control, or your house paid for, or a low mortgage. That's been taken away. Now you got inflation. You got $6 a gallon. I heard a lady the other day talking about she made $90,000 a year, and she had to get out of her present housing situation. And they wanted $2,500 a month rent for an apartment in Compton, and 700 credit score. Then Joe Biden has brought all these illegal immigrants over there. He's giving them all this money. He's giving them FEMA money, taxpayer money. And then finally, number 4, this is where I kick in. You got Benny Thompson. He proposed legislation that is before about a month ago that represented that if a president is convicted, he loses Secret Service protection. So if he goes to prison, I guess the inmates will beat him up. But anyway, all of this really can be arranged by the right person. I know for a fact that there are people in government that can do this because I did, because I was one of them for 17 years. I'm retired now. So all you got to do is go out and find a buffoon in Manhattan, which was done. And here we are today. Anybody want to respond?
Got to get some other people in, but thank you so much for weighing in. Chappelle, what's on your mind today?
Good morning, Santita, to your panel. I want to say that for me, I am glad that this is happening because what Trump has done is he has shown us all the holes in the Constitution, in the government, and he's exposing the Supreme Court. He's exposing everything. So I'm grateful for everything that has transpired thus far. I do want to say that I want him to get jail time because if I, Chappelle, got 34 convictions for a felony, I am going to jail. They should give him 4 years or whatever, run concurrently, but he needs to go to jail. If I, Chappelle Wells, actually had 10 violations and threats against the judge, I would have been sent to jail during the trial. So I don't want him to have any reverence at all. He needs to serve every bit of his time like any other American would do. But I want to also say, Santita, that what's going to happen if they try to circumvent him going to jail and they try to circumvent him from him not losing his voting rights, it's going to open the door for everybody. Because now you can't even put on your applications, are you convicted of a felony? Because you know what? The president of the United States is a felon, and he is in office. So it's going to help everybody. So I'm grateful for that. We can remove that question of all job applications, and now I thought that if you had a felony, you couldn't even have any government jobs. But guess what? Now, because they're going to allow Trump to do it, hey, we can get government jobs if we have felonies. So guess what? It's going to help all Americans. So keep on, Republicans, keep on.
No, But you know, but see, the thing is, I'm with you. That having been said, it's not a Republican or Democratic thing for me. It's just the hypocrisy. Once people have paid their debt to society, let it go. Let it go. I mean, and we are seeing hypocrisy here. But I tell you, I am concerned. We'll be talking about it on my show later on this afternoon, that a misdemeanor was reclassified as a felony, but they were given instructions to, if you can't find this as, if this can't be a felony, then we're going to then make it, then you can vote on it being a misdemeanor. The way the judge behaved in this case to me was interesting. And I just have a lot of questions about it. I have a lot of questions because we could all be in this position. This is not about Trump. It's about you and me. It's about a judge. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But you know what? But everybody, but Chaparral, everybody does that when they're running for office. Nobody wants bad news out on them. And not to mention the fact that I'm concerned that the jurors were not allowed to take written instructions into their deliberations. No. But I'm saying I'm saying, Chaparral, that's wrong. You shouldn't have. I don't think it should apply to anybody. For me, this is, and what I'm simply saying is, this is not about him for me. This is about them, which includes all of us. That's all I'm saying. My concern. Okay. Yeah, it is. It is. Uh-huh. I hope that they don't. No, you're a real Christian woman. No. I hope that they don't, because they have gone on with it. Well, no, they have gone on with their lives as well they should. But I tell you what, life comes at you, and it comes at you fast. I lived in New York. I lived there when that happened. Wait a minute. And let me tell you, those boys were across the street from they were across the street from my apartment building when they brought them into the precinct, because I lived on West 82nd Street. And when I tell you that Trump poured kerosene on an already smoldering fire, I know what he did. I know that. Trust me. But one of the things that I have learned in politics and in public life comes at you fast. Be careful. Be careful what you wish on anyone else. Keep on living. But you know what? I hope everybody learns the lessons that they need to learn. That's what I will say. And let us move forward. Let us move forward. What this can do, what his whole public life on this side as a politician has shown us, he's shown us holes in the system. He's shown us holes in the tax code that favor the rich. He has amplified how if you get on the Forbes list, you can get a loan. You can work hard every day and you can get a loan. All of these things. And I'm saying, get past him and go to the rot in the system so that your house can be assessed properly. I should not have to put pictures of white people on my walls and pretend that a white neighbor owns my place in order for it to be accurately assessed in terms of its value. Now let's just put this thing where it is. Stop y'all. Let me tell you, the game that the media is playing on all of us is to personalize this and make us focus on him and not on us. No, I got to go to this break. Stay right there. We can talk during the break. Back with more of Keep Up Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson, August 13th through the 17th, the Rainbow Push International Conference. You do not want to miss it. We're going to have this kind of talk and so much more. I think I'm going to broadcast from there. Jeremy, you going to come and help me out?
Yes.
Yeah. Back with more Keep Up Alive in just a few minutes. Okay, Chapearl, you can have at it with Representative Myers and with Attorney Jones. Oh, she can't hear me yet. Okay, now you can have at it with. Oh, okay, you can have at it with. Wait a minute, did I get all my papers? Oh no, keep talk to Daryl and to Representative Myers. Did I give you everything?
My biggest thing right now is that I hate the fact that there are people saying that he shouldn't get any jail time. He absolutely should get jail time. None of us could do what he has done in this trial and being convicted of 34 felonies.
But let me tell you something. But that has always been the case. Let us not act like Lady Justice has been blind and that we have not been jammed by the system. And I'm saying consider directing your energies to correcting a system that rolls over everybody. And some of the things that were done to him, in my opinion, Daryl, and I'm no lawyer, Representative Myers, I'm no lawyer, Chapeau, I'm no lawyer, but I'm concerned when the judge is clearly someone who favors Democrats. That concerns me. Even if it were me before the court, I'd be like, I'm concerned when in New York or any place, I can't take my own instructions into the deliberative room. I'm concerned about that. I mean, there's just a lot that concerns me, but we're so consumed with his personality, which is outsized, that we're not looking at some of the stuff I think that we need to really, 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 really look at. I'm not taking up for him. I'm taking up for us. I'm like, wait a minute. If attorney-client privilege has been disrupted, that means I can't say anything to my lawyer. I mean, I'm just putting Daryl and Representative Myers, I'm just putting those questions on the table, because when I'm looking at things, those are things that concern me. Just me, because my father always has these football analogies because he was a football player, and he was also. Did you all know he was recruited by the White Sox to play baseball? Yeah, so he's real in sports, and made me learn sports because he said half the world is male and men are into sports. This was 40, 50 years ago, of course. Well, everybody's into sports. He said, and I want you to be able to participate in those conversations. He said, when the goals are clear and the playing field is even and the refereeing is fair, he said, I can deal with the loss, but it's the cheating. The system has cheated everybody, but white, rich people. But when they start to jam white, rich people, I got to go, whoa, what's going on here? I don't want to see anybody jammed. If you want to know the truth, I just don't want to see it. But I think the American people are being jammed. That's just my opinion.
I agree. I agree with that.
Every time, so many of us have had to sit in the courtroom, and I saw what they did with my brother's case. They wanted to get it out of Chicago with a quickness, Daryl and Representative Myers, because they didn't want him to have a jury that would be sympathetic to him. They didn't want that. And furthermore, the money that they jammed him on, the moose heads and all of that, you know what the moose heads are? They're still in his possession. We offered to give them back. We offered restitution. Guess what? They didn't want that. They wanted him out of Congress. I mean, for real? And I'm putting it out there. I'm sick of the unfairness. And you know what? If Jesse were right-wing and stood up for the oligarchs, he wouldn't have had a problem. But because he wanted an airport where you would have equal participation with black and brown people and women.
30 seconds.
Oh no, they jammed him. Because he wanted a voting rights amendment to the Constitution, so that we have the federally protected right to vote. Oh no, you got a problem. For public education, you wanted that too. He wrote up a constitutional amendment for that too. I'm sick of that.
20 seconds.
Sick of it. And this is not about Trump for me. This is about the way this system works, and it's rotten. And we need to work this out. Period.
Well, like Attorney Fact always said, you need to know everything.
3.
Stand by, sweetie.
2, 1, you're live.
Boy, oh boy, Chapearl is still here. And she is swinging for the fences. But boy, it has been a great, great, great day. Jeremy, great music, I think. I am Santita Jackson, everybody. Hope you'll join me on AM 950 Radio and on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel from 6 to 8 every Monday through Friday. And of course, we'll be talking about this case and digging down into the weeds of the case on my show in the morning. But I want to hear from you. I want you to continue to go to the Santita Jackson and Friends page on Facebook and meet me on Twitter at Santita J. Please become my friend there. Let's work it out. August 13th through the 17th, we're going to get Chaparral to cook up some victuals. And of course, you can make some greens without meat because you know Daryl doesn't want any meat in his greens. You know, he looks like he's that guy. I'd have some fun with you. But everybody, come on and join the movement. Come to Rainbow Push. August 13th through the 17th is going to be a great convention. And always remember to keep hope alive. God bless you, everybody.
Thank you for listening to Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson. For more information on upcoming shows and guests, please visit our website at www.keephopealiveradio.com.
Chaparral, we're still on Facebook. Keep
Nah,
on.
Chaparral.
Oh, she's gone now. Oh, darn it. Daryl, Lakeisha, do you all have anything to say before we go?
No, just thank you. And I'm getting ready to head to church, so let me go.
Oh, praise the Lord.
Absolutely. I'm right behind you. Dr. Myers headed to church. But folks, I always encourage everyone to go to vote.org and check your voter registration status. We certainly haven't changed anything. Let's get ready and let's rock this vote.
Oh my gosh, we got to do that. Absolutely. And you know what, Daryl, we need to do something this week on who can, if you've been incarcerated, what your rights are with respect to the vote.
I can't hear you, Santita.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Okay, can hear you now.
Okay, I'm sorry. Move the mic away. This week, we've got to do something on voting rights. And Lakeisha, I'm going to see if you're going to be available. If you've been incarcerated, what are the steps that you take to when you're coming back into society? Do you have to re-register to vote? Can you register to vote? Where can you vote? Where can you not vote? I think we have to do that kind of education because the judges at the polls don't know. They don't know.
They don't know.
They don't.
The probation officers don't know.
No.
The judges don't know. You know, it's not something that's commonly taught. It's commonly made available.
Well, I think we should do it. We should talk about it. I'm not going to wait for them. We're the ones who need to do it.
100% on board with you on that.
Yeah, no, and we're going to have to push that like we did 4 years ago. Excuse me, where we were just pushing voting. Well, I think we need to do that now, you know, because people need to know what they can and cannot do and where. You know, and I hope everybody that Daryl, do you want to say anything before we go?
No, I'm good. But you know, let's learn what the voting rights are for those that are returning citizens, and let's not just stop there, but let's spread it with everyone else, so that whether they've been incarcerated or not, spread the information because somebody will know somebody that has the right to vote, and they don't know they have the right to vote. So we encourage you to spread the information, Santita.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. You know, I mean, and everyone. Let's get away from the cult of personality, you know, if I can say that to you, because we personalize so much in politics, and just in our lives instead of looking at principle. I think we should be concerned about rules being flipped around for anybody's trial. Even you know what Percy Sutton, the brilliant businessman who. I mean, we can never say enough about Percy Sutton. He was a Tuskegee Airman. He was Malcolm X's lawyer. He was my father's lawyer. He went on to own Intercity Broadcasting, which the crown jewel of which was WBLS, which was the home of Wendy Williams, the home of Frankie Crocker. It was the number one station in the number one market in the country, Black-owned station. And then he had a companion, WLIB, so he could do talk radio. And Daryl, he said, you know what contracts are for? I said, Mr. Sutton, everyone called him Mr. Chairman because he was chairman of the board. He said, contracts are for the day that you don't get along. Okay? And the freedom of speech and religion and all of these freedoms that Americans have are for those with whom you disagree. You might end up on the other side of that one day. Just you might. So for me, this is not personal. This is about the process. This is about principle. And that's what concerns me about all of this. You know, heaven forbid, if I brought up on charges and what was a misdemeanor, they upgrade to the lowest grade of felony you can upgraded to. And then the judge says, well, if you do not, if you don't find them guilty of the felony, then you can kick it back down to a misdemeanor. What? I mean, something about that. No. All I ask is that the rules are clear and the playing field be even and the reffing be fair. That's all. And yeah, that has to apply to someone you don't like. That has to apply to your political foe as well as it applies to your political friend. If you don't take up for the person just on principle, we will all get jammed. We'll all get slammed because that's how it works. So I've said my portion and I'm not taking up for anybody. And I should not have to say, oh, it's not that I love Trump. No, I love principle. God is a respecter of principle, not of persons. That's what I'm about, that piece. That's what this is about to me. It's about principle, really. One person can vote. You got Governor DeSantis running for the mic to make sure that Trump can vote. But he would lead the charge to overturn the will of the Florida people that he represents so that more than 1 million other men and women cannot vote. No, get mad about that. Get your eyes off Trump. He'll take care of it. The appeals process will do what it's going to do. I hope it's going to be fair. But we've seen from the behavior of the Supreme Court that they have ethics. That they have to make up themselves and nobody can check them. How can you trust this system? And we need to have a system that we can trust, that is worthy of our trust. We need to be focusing on that, making that happen. With the January 6 cases, Alito can stay. He's not recusing himself. Clarence Thomas is not recusing himself. These people have made their opinions about that particular event known. And we're not raising Cain about that. And we should. If they're going to be unfair to someone, the unfairness will visit you one day, all of us. And we need to push back on all of that. And really, before you all make judgments about these cases that have been before us, we need to understand what they're really about. Really. So think about that, everybody. I love you. And of course, if you violated a gag order, you would be held over. Absolutely. Of course you would be. Of course you would be, Robert. And they had a gag order on Trump, but not on Bragg's. Look, if you're gonna have a gag, and women not on Michael Cohen. If you're gonna have a gag order, have a gag order that applies to everybody. That's all I'm saying, y'all. That's all. Chaparral, you still there? Or was that Chaparral on tape?
No, that was you.
Oh, okay, all right. Then me, bombast. But
I
I love you all, everybody. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, don't look at what they do to Trump that you could never get away with. When have the rules? When have Black people and brown people and poor people been treated fairly in this country, in this world? When does that happen? No, the fight is to even the playing field so that we're all treated equally. A democracy, we have not had that yet. We've been fighting to have that. You cannot have a democracy when women can't vote. You can have a democracy when people are enslaved. Are you for real? You can't have a democracy under apartheid, which is what we had effectively until 60 years ago. We've been in this American project almost 500 years. Before 1619, 1532 Black folks got to the United States on this European colonial project. Come on, y'all. Really? No person's above the law. People have been above the law all the time. We choose who we want to prosecute. It's all political. And that is a joke. If you want to prosecute somebody, you need to prosecute these war criminals who kill people all around the world. You need to prosecute people who keep giving weapons that are killing all these Palestinians. You ought to prosecute people who sending these Haitians to jail rather than letting them in the United States while we're trying to steal their natural resources. For real? Don't get me started on this, but you have got me started. Think about that. Ain't none of this stuff been fair, ever. Don't get mad with one man. Get mad with a system and change it. Change the system. And be grown enough to change the system. Stop hating someone that the media's told you to hate. I've never seen anything so crazy in my life. Yeah, I have, because I grew up with the most hated man in America, because I'm my father's oldest child. That's who we grew up with, not the iconic Jesse Jackson, the hated one. You know, the one who had to have Chicago police outside of our home every day of my life, and a black security firm inside, the Fruit of Islam protecting him through his campaign. Are you for real? What? I was reading a book, and two senators, I think Senator Alan Simpson and someone else, said they were talking to him when my father was running for president. And my father was talking to them, and the Secret Service had lifted the bulletproof vest onto him. And because my father's 6'2", about 210, big football player guy, he's a big guy. So he said, you know, it just occurred to me, this man's having to put on a bulletproof vest, and I would mind you, coat that weighed about 40 or 50 pounds, Jeremy. Sometimes he had to put that on to run for president. Not just because people didn't just oppose him because he was black, but because he was standing for the people. Think about that, y'all. And this is not about my daddy. This is about, I'm talking about principle, everybody. Principle. Some things ought to be offensive to you. And if someone is treated unfairly, if anyone's treated unfairly in a courtroom, you ought to be upset about it. I don't care who it is, because guess what? One day, life comes at you fast. It'll be you. It'll be someone you love. It's about the principle. It's not about the person. It's about the principle. It's not about the person. You're right. If you had a gag order, yeah. Well, if you have a gag order on the man who said he wanted to put this man in jail. Are you for real? They broke so many precedents here. You can't, if you know, when you have an attorney, there's something called attorney-client privilege. And before an attorney will represent you, Jeremy, they say, okay, now you tell me everything. The only way I can really represent you is if I know everything. So Michael Cohen was not his fixer. He was his attorney. Of course he had to know everything. But the FBI raids his office. And suddenly attorney-client privilege is thrown out the window. Do you know how dangerous that is for all of us? Again, it's not about Trump. It's about you and me. Yeah, you're right, Robert. It's called selective prosecution and directed persecution. And it ought to be something that is profoundly offensive to you that you push back against. I don't care who it is. What do they say? Right is right if it's in the trash can, and wrong is wrong if your own mama does it. That's all I got to say, folks. That's it. So I love you all, everybody. August 13th through the 17th, Rainbow Push come to Chicago, 930 50th Street. We got a lot going on. It's going to be a great convention, and we need you to be there. James Cleveland wrote the theme song for Operation Push, which was, the push is on, there's work for us to do. The push is on, the job is up to you. We can make it a better place to live in right now. Can we count on you? I hope that we can. I love you, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow morning on AM950Radio.com. AM 950 Radio, the progressive radio station in Minneapolis, St. Paul. Go to the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel right here. And everybody, please share the show today. I will sing it, but another day. I promise you, Yvonne. I promise you, I love you, girl. I love you. What did you say? Richard Pryor did say, you go looking for justice and all you find is just us. And then you find a Eugene Debs who's white, who is standing for the people. Okay, that's interesting. What's up with that? Yeah. Well, some of this stuff goes beyond color, and we're going to get wise about that too. Get wise. I love everybody. God bless you. Jeremy, you naughty one.
Until next time.
All right. Where are you?
I'm hiding.
Don't hide. No. He was going to be giving us all that music today. Yeah. Love you.